Hi everybody, Emil here, ready to flip this last unit of the second theme, Unit 8 of Theme 2, so we can wrap up the theme and move along here. You're probably going to take a little bit of time with this video, but not nearly as much time as you did in the other flip video that I sent your way. But this particular unit is going to be covering measuring and understanding. So we're going to be taking a look at how Google's tool set allows educators to analyze student growth data and, of course, share it with others. So we'll take a look at ways for you to increase efficiency and save time while you're measuring student progress. Before we get started, just one quick little note. Remember, we are still responsible for protecting data. We have to actually emphasize the importance of that on a daily basis. It's not only the right thing to do, it's also the law. So let's just keep in mind, if you don't know much about FERPA, F-E-R-P-A, you should look that up so you can understand exactly what the laws are regarding the kind of data that you have to protect, that you shouldn't accidentally share with the public, for example. So if you're interested, go ahead and do a quick little search for the term FERPA and read all about it. All right. So data in, data out, right? What you collect is really important. How you collect it is very, very important. So what I'd like to ask you to do is just take a few moments here and go to the Unit 8 page and review the collecting data infographic that's there and learn all about ways of creating a gradebook if you need to. Of course, in our district, you don't really need to. We have gradebook in Aries. But take a look at some other concepts that are provided there, including ways to do classroom checks with Google Forms, ways to create rubrics with Google Forms that turn into, of course, spreadsheets. And then, of course, ways to protect data. There's some nice little information there that you should take a few moments and read through using the collecting data infographic on Unit 8. And when you're done, come on back. All right, so now it's time to identify some ways that you can measure student progress. And we're going to start with Google Sheets. If you already have an electronic grading system, which everybody in this room should have a grading system, it's the Aries gradebook. Some people are using the Canvas gradebook as well. The idea isn't for you to recreate it using Google Sheets, but you might need to do some quick calculations, maybe average some scores, and you can use Google Sheets and other Google tools to do that without a hassle. So I'm certainly not recommending that you create a brand new gradebook, but I'm suggesting to you that there is some usage for Sheets. Think of it as a document combined with a calculator, and you'll kind of see what I'm talking about as we move forward here. It's a pretty flexible tool, this Google Sheets thing. It's flexible enough to import data from existing spreadsheets and customize that data to meet your specific needs. Now, you already know the connection between Google Forms and Google Sheets. Forms provides a quick and easy way to collect data from students. Things like, I don't know, attendance, things like assignment or behavior reports, or a database of student and parent contact information if it's appropriate. There's also a methodology in Sheets for you to validate data, just like I showed you in the Google Forms system, where you can go through and you can say, hey, you need to make sure you put in a valid email address in this box. You can do the exact same thing in Sheets when folks can go in and do some data validation in the Sheets document itself. You simply go through and as you can see on the little example on the screen here, you just select a particular cell range or a particular cell, and you then go to data and you go to the validation here. Actually, let me just kind of show you what that looks like. So here's just a basic sheet that I just started up by going to sheets.google.com. And so I'm going to come on over here and I am going to go to data in the navigation menu, and I'm going to come on down and select validation. And once I do that, I get this little drop down menu that says, okay, well, what would you like to validate? So the cell range has to do with which cell. Each of these individual boxes is referred to as cells here, as you can see. And so I might want to come on over here and say I want column B, cell number 2 to be protected. Or I might want to select a range. And so I can come on over to the cell, and as you can see, as I hover over the little cell range, I can pull it on down and say, no, I want all 3 of these to be covered here, which would be, in this case, column B. Oh, actually, I need to reset this real quick. Let me go ahead and remove that validation. Yep. I'm going to remove that validation. Okay, so once again, I'm going to come on over, go to Data, go to Validation, and let me pull this guy over, and I'm going to select this little icon here that allows me to drag across wherever I need to drag across, and it says, okay, this is the data set. These are the data range that's going to be protected. So you click on OK, and now it's saying, all right, what kind of criterion would you like to include to do some limitations? And so you can see as I click on that, I have a number of different sets of criterion. For example, if I want to make sure that only an email address can be put in those cells, I would click on Text, and I can click on either Contain, Does Not Contain, or any of these things, including Is a Valid Email Address if I wanted to. Or I can change that over to a number that's maybe between or not between or less than or greater than. I'll keep it at between. Let's say the number is 1 and the number is 10. And then I can come on over here and I can say, do I want it to show a warning when somebody does and puts a number above 1 and 10? Above the number 10, or do I want it to completely reject the input? So I'll go ahead and reject the input, and I'll click on Save. And so basically what that means that in any of these cells between column B, row 1, and column B, row 5, if I was to go in and put a number outside of 1 through 10, like let's say 11, and click out of it, look what happens. Get a little window that says, hey, there's a problem. The data you entered in cell B4 violates the data validation rules. So same kind of concept that's associated with the forms, where you're saying you got to put in this kind of a thing, but you have a lot more range here using the Sheets system. So that's the validation system that we were talking about in forms is also available for you in Sheets with greater range, I should say. So before we continue on, I want you to please take a moment, take a pause, go back to the Unit 8 page and read the article that's available for you under Activity 16. It's just very short, it's Voices from the Field, and take a look at how some folks are using Sheets and forms to measure progress. And after you're done reading, come on back and we'll get into how folks can analyze data that's been collected. All right, so effective data analysis can certainly detect some weak areas of student growth that might otherwise not have been apparent. But measuring student progress is only as good as the data that's collected and the appropriate analysis, of course, of that data. There are a number of built-in tools in Google Sheets that allow teachers to organize and sort and filter the data about the students that they've collected to accurately reflect how well it is that their kids are actually learning. Now, before we get into this a little bit further, I want to make sure that you are somewhat acclimated with spreadsheet vocabulary. So we're going to take some time and take a look at the 5 terms that you specifically see on this slide. There's a lot more spreadsheet vocab, but we're going to take a look specifically at what is a cell, what is a function, what is a range, what is a value, and then what is format when we're talking about cells. So let's get started with cells. So when we say cell, we're talking about these little boxes. Each one of these boxes, for lack of a better way of putting it, other than the term cell, is referred to as a specific cell, which means that there's information that you can put into this particular area called a cell, and that information that you put in is referred to as the value. So here's a cell, and I'm going to put in a value of 16 in there. Here's another cell, and I'm going to put in a value of a meal. The value that's inserted is the term a meal in this case, you see. So these are the columns of the spreadsheet, and these are the rows of the spreadsheet. So for example, the cell that has the value a meal in it is found in column B, row 5. So this would be thought of as B5. You see. So far we've taken a look at what's a cell. We've taken a look at what is a value. Next thing we want to take a look at is what's a range, right? So a range has to do with a grouping of cells. You see. So what I can do, for example, is I can grab that the little box at the little square, I should say, at the bottom of the box, and I can pull it all the way down. And what it'll do is it'll copy the value that's in that cell and drop it into all these other cells. You see, so if I wanted to, for example, say I want to set some conditional, some formatting, for example, here's what I would do, and this will explain the concept of range for you in just a little bit. I'm going to go to cell column C, row 4, right? So this is cell C4 over here. And I'm going to go ahead and go to data and come down to validation. And I'm going to come on over and say, right now, I want to validate the content that's found in C4, right? But I can also click on this little icon here, right next to the cell range, and it's going to say, okay, well, what range do you want to validate? And I can come on back and grab that. I can say, I want all of this stuff covered here. See, when I let it go, look at what happens in the value column. It changes it to C4 to C9, right? So it goes from cell C4, which is column C, row 4, colon, which is another way of saying 2, from 2, C9, column C, all the way to C9. And when I click on OK, what I've done is I've created a new range of C4 to C9. So cell range has to do with a grouping of cells. So now we're going to take a look at two more things. One of them is called format. So format, think of it as the same concept of formatting in Google Docs or Microsoft Word or Microsoft PowerPoint. So format has to do with setting up the appearance of how things look within a given cell. So for example, I'm going to go into cell B4. I'm going to select it and I'm going to come on up to the navigation menu and click on format. And you see I can go through and I can change the formatting there. I can say I want you to list information that goes into that particular cell as percentile. So that 16 is going to change into 1600. You see, it goes into percent. Or I can change that format to, let's say, maybe currencies. So I can change that and I'll put it as $16. Or I can go through and do a whole bunch of things. Change the font size, make it bold or italics and so forth. Maybe align it to the left, align it to the center, include text wrapping and so forth. So that's what we're saying when we say format. We're talking about what goes into the cells and how it appears. Which brings us to the last term, which is functions. So functions and formulas are used interchangeably, although they are two separate concepts. And we're going to get to that through example as opposed to through explanation. So Sheets actually offers a huge number of functions that you can apply to a given spreadsheet. And I'll explain to that and explain what I'm talking about. Probably the most well-known of the functions, or the one that's used most often, has to do with summing up things. So for example, as you can see in the slide that is on the screen right now, I want to be able to say, okay, I want you to add up some values within a given range, and in this final cell, give me what the total is. I'm basically asking the spreadsheet to sum up information. You see, so for example, right here, as you should be able to see, there is some funny numbers that have been included, which start with an equal sign and then the word sum, and then in parentheses it says B2 colon B7. So what that actually means, that it's saying that in this particular cell, what I want you to do is I want you to sum up the values that are provided in the range of column B2 all the way to column B7. You see? So in this case, here's column B, here's row 2, and here's row 7. So basically what it's saying is I want you to take all of this information and sum it up and put the total over here. You see? So the function is summing up information. But in order to be able to sum up that information, you need to put in a formula, and I'll show you where in just a second, that allows you to sum things up. And in this case, the formula, as you can clearly see, starts with the convention of equal, and then you're simply going to put in the term sum, and then parentheses right after the M, and then the range that you want summed, and then close parentheses. So the formula brings about the actual function itself. So here's another example. In this case, the function is about averaging. You see, so it's not summing, it's about averaging. So in this case, as you can see, right here in this particular cell, we have a formula that's been put in there. And what it basically is saying is, hey, Mr. Sheets, what I want you to do is I want you to average the value that's put into the range column A2 to column A4. So here's column A, cell 2, cell 3, cell 4. And what I want you to do is average those three numerals together and then put the average in this particular cell. So let's take a look at how that all happens. All right, so here I am in my little sample sheet that I'm working off of. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come on over and I am going to say, let's put in some information. So in this case, we're in column B, row 17, and we're going to put in information. We're going to put in the number 2 there, the number 3 there, and the number 4 there. Okay, so now we're going to select this cell. The cell is cell B20, right? Column B, row 20. And in this case, what I want to do is I want to put in a formula for these 3 numbers to be added together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to start my formula by typing in equal sign. And then I'm going to start typing in the magic word, which in this case is sum. S-U-M. And as you can see, as I'm typing them in, Google is telling me, are these the functions you're trying to take a look at? And look at how many different kinds of functions there are. There isn't just one way of summing information. You can do a conditional sum across a range, or a sum of squares, or a sum of range depending on multiple criteria. I mean, it gets really, really technical here. But for now, we'll just keep it a nice and sum. So in this case, what I want to do is I want to sum up values that are found in row B through, row 17, column B, to row 20, column B. So I'm going to go ahead and just drag across and say that's the range that I want. I just dragged it across, and that's all I have to do, folks. That's it. Simple as that. Oop, did I? No, my mistake, sorry. Try one more time. So I'm in that cell. I'm going to put an equal, start typing SUM, and I'm going to put open parentheses, and then I'm going to drag the range that I want summed up. And as you can see, it selected it automatically for me, B17 through B19. I'm going to go ahead and close the parentheses and push enter. And now, whatever information is in 20 is going to equal up to the sum of these 3 numbers. Here, let's test that out. Let's change this number from 2 to 3. And then come out of it, what should happen is this 9 should then turn into that's right, 10. You see that? So I'm programming using a formula, information into the cell, saying what I want you to do is I want you to sum the information that are in these 3 cells. And if I want to find out what the formula is in this particular cell, I'm going to come on all the way up here to the top, and I can see that under the formula segment, it tells me here is a specific formula that you have included in that particular cell. Sum equals range B17 through B19. Same thing with average, same thing with a whole bunch of different types of functions that Sheets will provide for you. In fact, let's do that. Let's go ahead and change this from a sum formula to an average formula. Okay, so I'm going to come on back up here in the formula that I've created. I'm going to highlight the word sum, and I'm going to start typing in AV, and there it is, average. I'm going to select that. Oops, did I not select the right one? I did not select the right one. Sorry. One more time, AVE, and there's average right there. So when I select it, it's going to average range B17 through B19. And I'm done so, and as you can see, it automatically went ahead and it averaged out these 3 values in these 3 cells, which comes out to 3.33333333, and it goes on. Now you can also sort numbers. So if you select a column or some data within a column, you can sort it in ascending or descending order. How do you do it? You select the data that you want to sort and then just right-click, or you can just click on the Tools menu in Sheets and click on Sort Range. This is where you can specify how you want to sort the data, and even sort by multiple columns if you want. It's actually pretty cool for organizing lots of rows of student data so you can quickly see all the data for a specific student. Now, there are some pretty cool functions that I think you ought to know about, and so I'm going to go over them, and I'm hoping that you'll take some time over the next several weeks here and play around with some of these cool little functions here. The first one is called unique. It's called finding the unique values from a range, which sounds kind of confusing, so I put an AKA, which is get rid of dupes, duplicates specifically. So you use this particular formula, which is equals unique, and then put the range in when you need to find a list of all the unique values in a column. In effect, what it does is this particular formula removes duplicates, and it can be very handy. It's a cool little technique. For example, if students entered their names into a form, you could use the unique function to get an error-free list of every student who has participated, even if they submitted the form like 18 times. And you don't need to see their name 18 times. You just want to see who participated. So you can use this particular form across a range to get rid of dupes so you don't have a massive amount of information on a spreadsheet. Another cool one is called counting the number of values, and the formula is equals count open parentheses. That's where you put the range in the close parentheses. So you can use this to do how many values, not what the sum of the values are, but how many values, the number of values do you have in a given range, right? So you can pull an entire spreadsheet. Actually, it's probably best for me to show you this one. So here I am back in that weird little spreadsheet we've been playing with. And I'm going to go ahead and select this particular cell, and I'm going to go ahead and enter the formula equals count. And I'm going to go ahead and open up the parentheses, and I'm going to come on over here, and I'm going to grab all of the stuff that's in this particular range. You see, it's selected it for me. So it's picking everything from cell A3, row 3, all the way out to cell D20. And I'm going to go ahead and put a close parenthesis there. And so basically it's telling me now that in that range of stuff, between A3 and D20, you have 7 unique values. Let's count them up. Here's 1, here's 2, here's 3, here's 4, here's 5, here's 6, and here's 7. Right, because these two count as the same thing. You see, so it's counting the number of values, not the sum of the values. So here's another one. This is called the if function. Now it gets a little bit more crazy here, but the if function allows you to basically set a logical expression. Let me show you what that looks like. Okay, so here we are. We're going to work in row A, and what we're going to do is we're going to put the formula right over here. So here's what the syntax of the formula looks like. It's equals if, in parentheses, A1 is less than 26, then 100. Then it says comma and then 200. So what this expression is basically saying to you here, colleagues, here, let me zoom in so we can discuss it in detail, is what I'm saying is that in the range, or in this case, the cell A1, if in this cell a value has been placed that is less than the number 26, then give it 100 points in the target cell. Anything else should get 200. Should get 200 points. So let's test this theory out here and see if that's actually working here. So we are going to put that, let's see here. Let's go ahead and get rid of that. We're going to work in that particular cell. So we are applying this formula here. So right now, there's nothing in A1 because everything is under 26, right? So let's see, let's put in the number 3 and see if this number changes. Will it change if I leave the active cell? No, it won't change because this number is still 3, which again, if you remember the formula, if in A1, the value is under the number 26, then give it 100 points. So what if I was to make this a 25? Is this going to jump anywhere? Let's see. Nope, not quite. But I bet you know what's going to happen if I change this to 26, right? So let's go back into the formula. If in cell A1 a value is under 26, then give it 100, comma 200. And the comma in the end of the expression says, if not, then give it 200. You see? So let's change that to 26. And if your prediction is that this should change to 200, you are correct. You see? Now this... These are just a couple of the literally hundreds of functions that Sheets provides. And for most of us, like educators, we're not going to see even some of those functions you're probably not going to use. You're probably going to use the sum. You're probably going to use the average, maybe. But the point is you need to understand the concept about functions and formulas, cells and ranges and values and things of that nature in preparation for the examination. In fact, you can actually go ahead and, wrong space to video there. You can visit the Unit 8 page and learn all about the hundreds of sheets and functions and formulas. I've listed a number of links in there for you to take a look at and play with and learn all about these different kinds of things that we were just talking about. Now, you've completed your analysis. Fantastic. The next step is going to be for you to share and communicate that information with your parents and, of course, with teachers or with admins. And one of the easiest ways to do this is to visually represent the data with graphs and charts. Bar charts are built into Google Sheets, and they can be used to represent student growth and make valuable comparisons to see what the student needs to work on. It's a great way to get a quick overview of your specific data. After creating graphical representations of student performance, the information needs to be shared. Google Sheets has the same sharing functionality as all of the other Google Apps for Education products. All you have to do to share is just share the sheet with anyone that you'd like. Just to keep them up, keep them informed. Alternatively, you can embed your sheets in a Google site to create an accessible repository of information. So when you come in, we're going to be asking you to engage in a little bit of a discussion here, specifically around these two topics. How do you currently share data with whom? How do you graphically represent that data? And we'll engage in a nice collegial discussion in the morning. Now, I already mentioned this to you, bar charts, probably the most popular way of providing graphical data. There are a variety of bar charts, including bar, column, and probably the most powerful, which is the stacked bar, which is what you're seeing up on the screen right now. These types of graphical representations display large amounts of information in a very compact space. But then we have good old pie charts as well. Pie charts provide an easy way to display the results from an entire class. As a whole, the teacher can analyze which areas the class is strong or which areas the class is weak in. But the most important aspect of this exercise isn't just recording the correct answers, but it's also to determine why students thought other wrong answers were correct. These results are anonymized in these charts, as you can see here, so others can't determine the scores of an individual student when the summary report is shared with the entire class. So each year, teachers are collecting information on student performance. And if we are able to visualize these results over time, we might be able to draw conclusions about each student's learning. And there may be other things that have impacted a student on a particular day, but it may be more telling to see if there is a general up or down trend over time. So if we can see that a student is slipping, then we can intervene and get the student back on track before it's too late. And in this case, a line chart is a great tool to help track performance over time. I'm sure most of you have seen these. These are really cool charts. These line charts can be especially helpful if you're using assessment standards, which we are, which are assessed several times over a particular grading period. If you go to the Unit 8 page, you'll see all the different types of chart types that you can pull out of sheets, including scatter charts, maps even, area charts, and so forth. So take some time and explore that resource, if you will. So how do we create charts from data that's been collected on a sheet? You're not going to believe it. It's as simply as going to Insert and then selecting Chart, I should say. Let's take a look at that. So here we have some data, just student monthly collaboration scores, just something we made up just for play here. So how are we going to turn this information, which is information that spans across a period of time, across a group of students, into a chart? So we're going to come on up yonder to the Insert link in the navigation, and we're going to come on down to Chart, and we click on Chart, and we can see that the chart editor pops up. Now it doesn't know what you want to chart, so we're going to go ahead and click a range, and in this case I'm going to say, okay, I want this range over here, chart that information. Look what happens when I let go. When I let it go, I can come on over here and I can select or see what, it's my mistake here. First, you actually have to select the data that you're looking for. So I'm going to select the data, then go to Insert, and then come on down to Charts. And then as you can see, Google immediately recognizes how you've laid things out, reads the headers as well, and goes, you know what? You're probably looking for this type of a line chart. But you can see it's also giving you a number of other kinds of particular charts that you might want to take a look at. You might want to try this type of chart, or here's a bar chart if you'd like. But by default, Google said this is probably the one that's going to serve you the best. Isn't that amazing that this system does that? Now, you don't have to go with what it is that it's telling you to do. You can choose from whatever type of chart you want to. But for now, to keeping it simple, we're just going to go ahead with that, clicking on Insert, and look at that. Just created a lovely little line chart that gives you some trend line information about how these students have been collaborating over the course of the last several months. So what I want you to do now is for you to go to the Unit 8 page and go down to Activity 17. There's an activity there that says Monthly Collaboration Scores. All of the the instructions are available for you, including the data set to play with. Follow the instructions and complete the activity. And when you come on in, during our next session, we'll go ahead and discuss your findings and respond to any of the questions that you might have. And that's it, folks. Once you're done with that, you're in great shape. Take the unit review, and incidentally, you might want to go back and take the other unit reviews, the Unit 5 review, the Unit 6 review, the Unit 7 review. Of course, don't forget to complete the readings as well, as I mentioned earlier. And we will see you first things first, answer any questions, clarify points that need to be clarified, and then we'll move on into the third and final theme of our extravaganza, starting up with Unit number 9. All right, guys, so long.